Hello, 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 YouTube world. How are my YouTubers today? Can anybody see or hear me out there in YouTuber land? Hello? Hey, Sorrenti, how are you doing? I am glad. Hey, if it's only you and me today, that's fine. We'll sit here and have a little conversation. Sorry about the shaky thing. I'm moving my table here. I'm messing around inside the cabin cleaning up stuff, so you can see and hear me. Excellent. Good to know. Good to know. Looks like we have a few other people trolling, watching and not jumping in, but we'll give it a minute or two and see how things fill up. Hello, Christine. How are you, darling? Have you been enjoying watching the Safari Lives? They're always fun to watch in the mornings and in the evenings. I don't get up early enough in the morning here in Alaska to catch the mornings, which is at nighttime, the evening ones there in Africa, but I do catch the morning ones. Hey, Declan, glad you made it, dude. Very glad to see you here. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We're just going to give it a minute or two to let some people file in. Not expecting a big crowd today, so it'll be interesting to see what happens. Kind of an off day. Hold on, let me kill this thing behind me here. Making noise we don't need. Hello, Kim. Glad to see you guys made it. Well, we had a lot of fun watching Bob and Megan earlier today. I do wish they had better signal strength or internet connections or what have you. It seems frustrating to not only myself, but I imagine a lot of other people with live streams cutting in and out the way they do down there. But I think that's just the nature of being sailing in the Caribbean. So their internet is about as reliable as is the rest of their services in that area. Yes, it's really good now that they're in the Mar too. Yeah, Christine, I agree. It's nice seeing the two distinctly different parts of Africa. For those of you guys that don't know, Christine here and I both watch Safari Live, which is a live stream put on every evening and every morning by a group in Africa, and they take you on a safari and show you a bunch of animals and what's going on there. It's kind of interesting. So, hey, Rhonda, glad you made it. Thanks for coming in. Cool. All right. Well, we're starting to get some folks coming in. We're going to have an interesting live stream today. Hey, Austin, welcome. Glad you made it. We're going to have an interesting live stream today. I've had a number of people, land dwellers, dirt dwellers, who have shared with me some reasons why they could never get in a sailboat and sail around the world. To a great degree, a lot of this is going to be directed towards my first ex-wife, Johanna, who I had a conversation with this week. And she's got all kinds of worries and about all these things that are going to go wrong and how I'm going to die while out sailing. And so I thought, I just wanted to demonstrate to everybody that, you can take these things head on and meet these things, that you should not be fearful of things. You should not be fearful in your life that you don't do things because you're afraid of shit. Hey, Paulie D, welcome. We did miss you last week. I'm glad you made it. Cool. And Sorrenti, yeah, Rhonda is feeling a little better. She's still not all there. For those of you guys that don't know, Cheshire Canary's name is Rhonda, and she had a little bit of a brain infection a couple weeks back and has been doctoring for that, trying to get better. So it was the result of a piercing that she had in her inner ear, and it caused a problem for her. So let that be a lesson to you. Don't be getting piercings. I personally do not have anything pierced. In fact, I'd like to know how many people on here have piercings. How many of my viewers, how many of my live streamers have piercings? Hello, Reich. Going to Myrtle Beach tomorrow for ASA. Hey, awesome, Reich. Nice to hear that. Going to take the ASA lessons. Cool. I'm glad that's going to happen for you. You'll get a big kick out of that. I've never taken the ASA sailing lessons. I kind of you know, like everything else I've learned in life has been the school of hard knocks, which in sailing is, you know, kind of a dangerous thing to do, but it is what it is. Not a one. All right, so let me jump into this. For those of you guys that aren't familiar with my live streams, I try to do a bit of a program as well as answering questions and stuff. It keeps me kind of busy during this hour or so, so let me kind of jump into it. Kim wants to know, how are things going with the farm and the boat? Kim, I am frustrated with the slow progress of the buyer on the property. She is working towards that goal, but it seems like it's coming painfully slow, and it's very frustrating for me. I would like to see her kind of get it done, and she's working towards it, but unfortunately the way she's going about it is just going to be a slow process. For some reason I can't seem to get a spot out of my glasses. Took some incoming in Desert Storm. Does that count? Yes, Austin, that obviously counts. Absolutely. Okay, so let me jump in. Hey, PC guy, welcome. All right, so here's what I wanted to talk to you guys about. In all those things that we have that can make being a sailor or a cruiser dangerous, let me start out with the medical stuff, I guess. I'll start there with the medical stuff. Because as you're traveling around the world, you're exposed to a whole lot more diseases than you would if you were, you know, certainly if I stayed up here in my little cabin in Alaska, I'm not exposed to anything because I hardly have any contact outside with people. In fact, my immune system right now is rather diminished because it hasn't had to fight off much lately. So I imagine once I get started, I'm going to get sick quite a bit as I build up my immunity system again. You got to have small exposures to things to build up immunities to them. If you isolate yourself for a while, you lose those immunities. So I'm going to have to build those up. Hey, Teresa, nice to see you, T. So let's start talking about those. There are some that I'm not really interested or worried about, like Zika virus. Seems to me the only negative thing with Zika virus, it affects unborn children and pregnant women, and I'm not a pregnant woman. So I think I'm safe there. Ciguatera is a big thing that I'm concerned about. Ciguatera is disease passed on in fish, and especially around coral reefs. Dominant reef fish will tend to eat smaller fish. By eating the smaller fish, they build up a toxic level of Ciguatera, and that can make you sick. So that's something to be concerned about. What you made about selling all your stuff off? Hope it's working for you. Yeah, Declan, it is. I am having good progress selling off stuff. And actually, I want to know how many of you guys saw my latest video where I sang the Friggin' and the Riggin' song. I'm surprised I've had very few comments about that. I was actually kind of surprised by it. But then there's a whole bunch of other stuff. You know, there's Ebola in Africa. There's yellow fever, malaria, which is a real concern, actually. MERS. Now, interesting thing about MERS, Middle Eastern Respiratory Syndrome, my mother had that. Had to go in the hospital. They didn't know what it was back then. They actually cut her from stem to stern, from her rib cage around to her spine, opened her up, and it was an infection inside the bag that surrounds the lungs. There's a small skin sac around the outside of the lungs, and the infection was in that. She had to have that surgically removed. So that could come as a problem. And some shellfish as well as clams and oysters. Yeah, yes, you can get Ciguatera from them as well because they concentrate those sort of things. Missed that one. Austin, you'll have to go back and watch some of my videos if you missed that. There's an outbreak of polio right now, which is surprising. We thought we had that one beat. Giardia from, you know, dirty water, dengue fever, sunburns and heat strokes. Actually, I've got some visuals here. Let me jump to my visuals. Here, sunburn. Yep, here. There's something to be concerned about because not only do you have to worry about sunburn, but of course then you've got all of those sun exposure diseases that you can get. You know, you can get cancers and stuff from too much sun exposure. So you gotta really work on that. I saw that song was a big hit in Ireland in the 80s. Yeah, I imagine it was, Declan. I actually learned that song when I was in a choir in high school. A very good friend of mine named John Pickow. His mother was Jean Ritchie, the folk musician. John taught me that when we were in high school in a choir together. So I've known that song now for some 40 plus years. So any serious bleeding from cuts? Yes, obviously, right. Accidents are going to be a big issue too. Having a serious accident, breaking a leg is a big issue. Breaking a bone while you're traveling or out in remote areas can be a problem. So there are all those sorts of things that you have to be concerned about. There are actually some things that you would be rather surprised to hear about, like getting hit in the head with a coconut. Surprisingly, it's a big problem. Now, I can tell you, having recently spent some time in the Florida Keys and having had a big coconut land on the roof of my truck, coconut damage is a real problem. I'm amazed at how many places down the Florida Keys they have coconut palms around parking lots. Huge mistake. Those things fall from a tree, they will take out a windshield. Made to get before taking the cruise. Yes, obviously, Judy, I'm going to have to get a bunch of shots. I am mostly up to date on my shots, but I'm going to have to get some. And Miss Lily, my dog, has to get some. So we'll have to take care of that too. Bought the Sex Pistols album with that on when I was about. I didn't know the Sex Pistols had that in there. I'll have to check that out. So yeah, so sunburn and sun exposure and falling coconuts, these are all sort of an issue that we have to be concerned with. And that's what this is going to be. I'm going to run down a quick list for you of all the perils and reasons why people are afraid to go sailing and cruising. There's piracy. There are pirates out on the open ocean. There are drug runners out on the open ocean. This boat that is pictured here is one of these boats that it actually travels just slightly beneath the surface. So you really don't see it very well while you're out cruising because just a very small part of it, almost like a snorkel, like a submarine would have, sticks above the surface. This thing comes along, it won't show up on your AIS and your radar and stuff. So some of this kind of stuff can be pretty dangerous out there. And then, like I said, pirates, especially around the Somali coast, pirates can be a really big issue while you're out traveling. Austin bought the okay PC guy. Watch out for Asian ladies that say "me love you long time." Yes, long, long time. Yeah, I actually probably be looking for some of those ladies. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Told you it was a big hit. Couldn't remember who had it, but now I know. Thanks. Okay, so it was the Sex Pistols, huh? So yeah, you've got to watch out for piracy. You got to watch out for boat thieves. Surprisingly, a lot of the drug people are stealing boats and then taking them and using them to go out and run their boats with. And then, of course, there's some other things that may not seem like a normal thing to be concerned with, but you've got things like lightning strikes. I don't know how well this is falling in line with my visuals, but in this particular picture, this sailboat actually is not being hit by lightning. The lightning is actually hit behind it, but it looks like it's hitting the tip of their mast. But lightning strikes in a sailboat, very dangerous situation. Not only can you worry about them frying all your electronics, which can be very expensive and actually is fairly common, but I've known of lightning strikes that actually have blown holes through the bottom of a boat and sunk them. Not to mention lighting the boat on fire. So, eating your carrot cake, huh? Okay. So, and then another issue is tsunamis. These waves that are caused by earthquakes, underground earthquakes. They can get your boat and run it up on the ground. So, this is a boat that was set up on the ground by a big wave. And so obviously bouncing along on the ground is not good for the bottom of your boat and will ruin your trip. Other issues that you have to be concerned about, shipping containers. Shipping containers are a huge issue out in the ocean. Shipping containers can be a real problem because they don't show up on your AIS or your radar usually very well. In fact, there was a movie made not that long ago, I forget the name of it, about a guy who ran into a shipping container and almost died as a result of it. Actually, in that particular movie, it was sort of a series of bad, small little things along the way that ended up becoming a real major catastrophic disaster. And that's exactly how these things happen. A little something, and then that triggers another little something, and that triggers another little something, and they build on top of each other, and you end up with a huge failure. But so hitting shipping containers is something to be concerned about because you're not always having somebody up on deck looking in front of where the boat. It's not like driving a car. You don't have somebody sitting out there looking out the windshield 24 hours a day. Sometimes you put on the autopilot, and you go down below and you're making dinner. I know people single-handed kick on the autopilot and go down below and go to sleep. They click on their radar and their AIS to alarm them if something comes within 5 or 10 miles of their boat. And then if alarm goes off, they come onto the surface and see what the problem is. But in the case of a shipping container, you would not necessarily see that on the surface. Whale strikes. Whale strikes are a big issue out on the water, okay? Whale strikes are definitely a big issue and something that is a concern to me. And they're not necessarily like you see in this picture of a whale jumping out and landing on your boat. Quite often, whales, which don't have really good eyesight, will tend to get amorous with your boat. They may come up and rub on the bottom of it, and in doing so can knock your shaft or your drive shaft or your rudder out of whack, start causing a leak and sinking your boat. So you have to be concerned about whale strikes while you're out sailing. Another issue is reefs. Reefs are usually under the water surface. You may not see the reef. So as you're, sailing along, if you're not paying attention to your navigation, you could run aground. Reefs are jagged, rugged structures that can cause a lot of damage to the underside of a boat. So you've got to be very concerned with paying attention to them and checking your charts and seeing where they are. They fall off boats all the time. There's no way to get them back. Teresa, yeah, the shipping containers fall off a lot of the big cargo ships, and sometimes they know they fall off and they'll just leave them there. It's just not worth their while to go back and get them. They haul so many of them so often. It's quite often they'll lose a stack or two or three. Do a search on Google and you'll find all kinds of pictures of cargo ships missing shipping containers. It actually is a very big problem out in the ocean. Yep, there you go, Declan. Thank you. Okay, another issue, and a very obvious issue here is storms. You've got hurricanes, you've got tropical storms, tropical depressions, just surprising microbursts popping up that can do a lot of damage to you. Today's day and age, we have the technology to protect ourselves for the most part from them, but still, it's something to be concerned about. Hey, Carolyn, nice to see you here. Never thought about shipping containers. Yes, there's been a number of reported cases of sailboats being damaged and sunk by striking shipping containers. They are a hazard to navigation. That's the term they use. So you have to be concerned about that. Another thing that you might want to be concerned with is rig failure. If you're out sailing around the world and not paying attention and maintaining your sailing rig, you can have cables burst, you can overpower your sails. You could be out there with a perfectly good sailboat in perfectly good shape, and all of a sudden get a wind microburst or a storm pop up out of nowhere and break your rig. And now you're in real problems. Now you no longer have the ability to sail. If you have a well-designed boat, you still have the ability to motor, but for the most part, if a sailboat's out in, say, the middle of the Atlantic or the middle of the Pacific, you don't have enough fuel on board to motor all the way to land. So it can be a real problem for you. Okay, so losing your rig is something you have to be concerned about, and not necessarily something you can really protect yourself from. It's just one of those things that happens. And then as I think it was Teresa mentioned earlier, there's always the concern of fire. Fire is certainly a big concern on a boat. You've got a lot of electric on a boat, electric batteries and electric wires. It's very common to have electrical fires on boats if they're not contained well and create a problem. You can light your whole boat on fire. And so, now you don't have a boat. You can't rescue yourself, save yourself. You have nothing to stand on. You're in the water. You die. Falling overboard. falling overboard is probably the number one thing that keeps me up at night about the idea of going sailing. If there was any one thing in all of the things I'm talking about here that I'm concerned about, it's falling off the boat. Mostly because, for the most part, or for a lot of what I'm going to be doing, I'm going to be single-handing on the boat. Even if I have a lifeline and I clip myself in, I'm so out of shape at this point, if I go over the side, I would not be able to get myself back up on the boat. And so falling off the boat is my single biggest fear. So needless to say, while on board, I'm going to take a lot of precautions to make sure that that never happens. I want to make sure that not only am I tied to the boat, but I'm tied to the boat in such a fashion that even if I trip, slip, fall, whatever, I'm not going to fall and be over the side. I'm going to still be up on deck. That may make it difficult for me to get around the deck, but I'd much rather have it difficult to get around the deck than to be over the deck. So falling overboard is a huge concern for me. Crashes. Surprisingly, a lot of crashes happen out on sailboats. Now, you would think you're out in the great big ocean out there all by yourself, but there's a lot of what we call credit card captains, people out there with sailboats that don't have a clue what they're doing. Or, like I said before, people will put on the cruise control, the autopilot, they'll go down below, not be paying attention to where they're going rather, and they'll wreck into another boat. So crashes are something that you always need to be concerned about while out cruising. Rogue waves. Out of the blue, out of nowhere, for absolutely no reason whatsoever, all of a sudden there can be a rogue wave. And those rogue waves, I mean, this is a big shipping container here, or actually it's a big oil tanker. That's probably a 300-foot long boat that you see. Give you an idea how big that wave is. Why are they called credit card captains, Teresa? They're called credit card captains because they have no boating experience, but they have a credit card which allows the charter company to lease them a boat. Or they have enough money to go out and buy themselves a boat, even though they don't have a clue how to use it or what to be doing on it. They have no idea what the rules of the road are or how to take the right safety precautions to protect themselves and their crew. For the combined 6-year period between 2000 and 2013, the WSC estimates that there were 546 containers lost on average each year, not counting for catastrophic events. Wow, that's a lot, PC guy. Thank you. With all these concerns, when will you sleep? Okay, counting the catastrophic events, on average, 1,679 containers were lost each year over the 6 years. Wow, scary, huh? Scary to think about that. Okay, now there's some other rather weird things to be concerned with, okay? Whirlpools. Now, here's a whirlpool underneath the San Francisco Golden Gate. That whirlpool is big enough to swallow a 30 to 40-foot sailboat and pull it under. There's a lot of reasons, mostly having to deal with currents, especially where rivers enter into or exit from oceans, or a small body of water enters a large body of water. Up here in the northern climates where we have a lot of tidal change and there's a lot of islands, we see a lot of this kind of water activity happening. Something to be very concerned about and to look around. Oh, Declan, I'm not done yet, buddy. Hold on. We'll get there. We'll get there. Okay, now here's another thing that this is a real weird one. Okay, and I'm going to underwater volcanoes. And here's the thing about underwater. There's actually a place in the Caribbean called Kickham Jenny. Kickem, and then the woman's name Jenny. Kickham Jenny. You're not allowed to sail in a certain area of the Caribbean where Kickham Jenny is. And what Kickham Jenny is, it's an underground volcano. And what happens when the volcano erupts, you get a plume of bubbles and ash that come up to the surface. Surprisingly, that nice bubbly effervescence that you would have in your champagne is a real hazard to navigation because those bubbles do not provide buoyancy. And if you're sailing across the top of that volcano and it erupts underneath of you, those bubbles will cause your boat to sink. Now, we know this because it has happened. One of those weird things out there in the ocean. So you kind of have to know a little bit about where you are and what you're doing. You got to have some experience and some knowledge. So volcanoes is sort of a weird thing. Tidal changes. Tidal changes, especially up here in the northern areas like Alaska, tidal changes can be huge. In this particular situation, this boat parked over the rocks. The tide went out and left the boat high and dry. Up here in Alaska, we have places where we have 18 to 20 feet of tide. That means the water will rise and fall 20 feet every 6 hours. That's huge, guys. I mean, that's an incredible amount of water. So even though I might anchor off someplace where I'm in, 20 feet of water and I'm, a long ways off the bank and it looks like I'm in a nice safe spot, the tide could drop out and leave me high and dry on the rocks, as you see here in this picture. So that's something to concern yourself with. Here's another one of those really odd situations. This is pumice. Pumice. Ladies, you're probably aware of the term pumice. A lot of you buy pumice stones to use in the bathroom on your feet to grind them down and make them soft. Pumice is naturally comes out of volcanoes. It lifts up to the surface. It can make a very thick blanket on the surface. And again, sometimes pumice can create a large field like you see here in the ocean. It's not buoyant like water. You can actually drown in pumice. If you were to try to jump overboard and try to swim through that, you could drown in it. And your boat could sink in it if you don't have a boat that has a lot of draft. Like if you went through that with a small bass boat, your bass boat might actually sink because the pumice isn't buoyant enough to keep you above the water. So it's a kind of a weird thing that you have to be concerned about, but it's a cause of some people having sank before. Okay, let's get more into some of the biologicals now. Jellyfish. Right here is pictured a man of war, Portuguese man of war. Here's the thing about jellyfish. When I swim, I wear what's known as a rash guard. I wear a covering that goes all the way down to my ankles and to my wrists. I wear little booties. I wear gloves. I wear a mask. I wear a hood over my head to protect myself from jellyfish. There have been times I've been swimming through the water, was not anywhere near a jellyfish, but still a piece of a jellyfish tentacle had broken off and was just floating in the water, and I swam into it and had it all over me. It was really nasty. So, and jellyfish can be lethal. So you really have to be concerned with jellyfish, not only on the surface, but as you can see here, laying on the beach. There's been times people walk down the beach barefoot and all of a sudden their foot gets all hot and blistered and they start feeling sickly. It's because there was a jellyfish there or under the layer of sand, whatever. When they stepped on it, they made contact with the jellyfish. So something to be concerned about. Let me catch up on some notes here. Paulie, it depends on each person. Some will fight and not think. Some will just be okay. That's what I need to do and do. Okay, seeing that National Geographic show looked like an island was there, but it was pumice. Yes, pumice can be dangerous. Hello, Jonathan Canny. Am I saying that right, Canny? Considering there are 5 to 6 million shipping containers crossing the world's oceans every day, a few thousand is nothing. I think the real number has to be higher. Yeah, Jonathan, I agree with you. That number is a drop in the bucket compared to how many cross the oceans on a daily basis. I'm fearful that number is higher. And the thing about it is, it's very simple for that industry to develop fail-safes so that if a shipping container goes into the water, there could be a membrane that dissolves quickly in the water or something that would allow it to sink. But I've known shipping containers, judging from the algae and growth on them, that have been floating out there for months, if not for a year. Colonel, there are some that are so dangerous one can kill you, but they are very tiny. Yes, and so the fact that they're very tiny jellyfish is all the more reason to be cautious and prudent about them, especially without swimming. Usually the bigger ones will burn like fire and hurt, but the smaller ones, forget the species, but is really small. They're very dangerous. Yes, there's lots of very dangerous ones. Reich, I'm canceling my sailing lessons and buying an RV. Oh, sorry, Reich, but we're not even there yet, buddy. We're not even there yet. Okay, here's another thing to be concerned with. Algae blooms. Algae blooms. Believe it or not, guys, when you buy your fertilizer for your lawn in suburban Midwest, wherever you live, and you go out and you put that Scott's lawn stuff out on your lawn, some of it does not dissolve, or if it does dissolve, it gets down in the water. The water then works its way down the little creek to the stream to the river to the ocean. Hits the ocean, and we have these huge algae blooms. This is the product of all that Scott's lawn fertilizer. These algae blooms are very toxic. They suck the oxygen out of the water, and that oxygen being sucked out of the water will kill off lots of fish and people swimming in it. So these algae blooms, they cause all kinds of rashes and topical issues with your skin. Very scary. Okay, now we're going to get to some of the more obvious things, okay? Bottom, bum, 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 bum. Jaws. Yep, jaws, sharks. For the most part, 99% of the time, sharks are not out there looking to eat you. I'm not saying that they won't eat you. It's just you're not normally on the menu for them. Most of the shark attacks are where they've mistaken you for something else. This is the reason why I absolutely hate swimming in water I can't have good visibility in. I figure if I can see the shark can see me. If he can see me, he knows I'm not whatever it is he normally eats. So sharks are obvious concern while we're out sailing, and one of the reasons why I like staying in clear water so I can see what's going on. Okay, here's another thing that I have a personal scare about, and because I've had this experience, octopus. Octopi can be very defensive, and they can attack people while scuba diving. I have had this experience. I have had octopuses go after me, and actually while I was filming, very much like is depicted here in this picture. So octopuses are a real concern while we're out swimming. Not only do we have to worry about octopuses, but the kraken. That's right, you heard me right. The kraken, squid. Now in this case, this is a Humboldt squid, very commonly found in the Gulf of Mexico and the Sea of Cortez. They are nasty. They will attack and can kill human beings. So they are something to be really concerned with. I have not personally been attacked by a squid, but my past wife Penny was. It didn't actually go after her, but it did bite her fins. Took a chunk out of one of her fins, so that's something to be concerned with. Judy, sailfish and swordfish, yeah, not necessarily a problem unless they mistake you or they just happen to be swimming through. Usually what happens if people get attacked by them is because they're going after the bait fish that the human beings are swimming through. Again, make sure you have clear visibility around you. Octopuses are clever. You can teach them to take the lids off of jars and other stuff. Yes, octopuses are very clever. Very, very clever. Okay, here's one of the things that I've had personally a real bad experience with. I was swimming over some coral reefs in Jamaica, and on the top of the coral reef in about 2 feet of water, I was trying to snorkel across the top to get back over to the shore, and my knees and my tops of my legs made contact with sea urchins like you see here. I want to tell you something. I was miserable for about a month after that. So I have a deep respect for these long, black, spiny sea urchins. They're not going to kill you, but they can really ruin your vacation or your day. Poisonous fish. Poisonous fish can be a real issue while you're out sailing and cruising. Walking along beaches, you could be walking along someplace and, not even realize you're stepping on one. You have to be conscious of what's on the bottom and what you're making contact with. As you can see from this fella, he's very well camouflaged. So unless you swim right up to him and are looking very carefully, you won't even notice he's there. And some of these can poison you and be lethal, so it's something to look out for. As Teresa mentioned, stingrays. Stingrays are an issue to be out. Steve Irwin, the crocodile hunter, I don't know how many of you guys remember him. He was killed by a stingray. This is how he died. You can see the little barb there on the bottom on the curve of the tail. The stingray swung its tail up, drove that barb into his chest, into his heart. And they pulled it out, and that's what killed him. Declan says he's been spiked by one of those. Yeah, they hurt. They're nasty. They're nasty. Now, one thing I didn't have a picture of in here, but I should have added, along the same line, when I lived in New York, grew up in New York, we had something called horseshoe crabs, which is a horseshoe-shaped crab that moves along the surface. Its tail, it would spick up its tail, and I've been jabbed by those. They are not at all fun. Hey, Kelly, how you doing? Glad you made it. Welcome. We're talking about all the things to be concerned about and afraid about when you're going sailing. So I'm giving all the people all of the bad things that can happen to you while you're out sailing. But here's another thing I've had personal experience with. Barracudas. Some of you might remember that on SV Delos, not Brian, his brother, got bitten by a barracuda. When you're swimming, especially ladies, don't wear anything shiny. No bracelets or ankle bracelets or anything shiny like that, because barracuda will mistake it for a bait fish and will go after you and bite you. When I was very young, like 12 or 13, I was scuba diving off the south coast of Jamaica. No, I'm sorry, the north coast of Jamaica, off of Ocherias. And while out there swimming around, we were down about 30 feet or so, and it got dark, like the sun got behind a cloud, kind of dark. The guy I was swimming with tapped me and got my attention, had me look up. There were so many barracudas swimming overhead above us that it actually blacked out the sky. There was a huge school of barracuda. He had to swim down and get up close to some rocks on the bottom, and we stayed there amongst those rocks and hid amongst those, waiting for that school of barracuda to pass by. They can be dangerous. So, and yes, you have barracuda in Florida. Barracuda are all over the world. So there's something to be concerned with. Here's something that's really pretty that you wouldn't think much about, but this is a stinging anemone. It won't kill you, but will make you very sick, very dangerous to be around. Rule of thumb when you're underneath the water, don't touch that. Like the song, don't touch that. Don't touch that. You shouldn't touch anything while you're underneath the water. So that's something to be concerned about. You want to watch out for sea anemones. Look at this toothy little guy here. This is a moray eel. Now, again, a moray eel, generally speaking, won't kill a person, unlike what they've shown and depicted in some movies. But I have seen firsthand accounts where a moray eel took someone's thumb off. The idiot was under the water feeding little hot dogs to them, and it mistook a thumb for a hot dog and took the guy's thumb off. So, again, stay clear of moray eels. And while we're in that, let's talk about snakes as well. You want to be cautious about some of the sea snakes. A lot of them are poisonous. Fortunately, the majority of the sea snakes have really small mouths. So as a general rule, they can't bite a human being because they can't open their mouth that big. Maybe on the tip of your pinky or something they might. Yes, right, Edward, you're correct. It was Brady that got bit by one. Okay. Now here's an interesting one that most people won't think about. This is fire coral. This coral will leave a real bad burn if you make contact with it. So again, can't touch this. You don't want to touch this stuff. You don't want to go down below. When I go scuba diving, when I'm snorkeling, I wear gloves. Some countries actually won't let you wear gloves. They don't want you to wear gloves because they don't want people touching stuff. I wear gloves just to be on the safe side, unless it's illegal where I'm diving, and then I don't. But as a general rule, I don't touch stuff. What's interesting about fire coral And what I learned the hard way, we were scuba diving off the Florida Keys. We were actually going out diving with, what was their names? Anyhow, I don't remember. Anyhow, we were going out of Key Largo. We were going to dive the Duane and the Rhone and a few of the wrecks there. And the concrete sidewalk that you walk barefoot on to go down to where the Ocean Divers was the name of the outfit. The concrete had been made with recycled coral. Well, guess what, guys? They had fire coral in that recycled coral that they made the sidewalks with. So as you're walking down the sidewalk, your foot's making contact with that fire coral. Even though it had long been dead and is now part of the sidewalk, we had a severe reaction to the bottoms of our bare feet for making contact with the fire coral that was in the sidewalk that had been poured. So when you're in the Caribbean areas, be concerned about being barefoot. It's a good idea. Put on a pair of Crocs or sandals at all times. It will make a big difference in your life. I caught one of them when I was a kid. It was like a foot long in Tenerife. Yeah, Declan, a foot long is a very small, if you're talking about barracuda, it's a very small barracuda. Or are you talking about an eel? Either way, it's very small because they get pretty big. Okay, let me move on here. Now, here's something that most ladies will see and want to go pick up because, oh, it's pretty. Folks, this is a cone snail. It's lethal. That little snail has a little spike that sticks out that it can stick you with, little barbs. They're lethal. So you want to leave cone snails away. So there's another thing that you've got to be concerned about while you're out sailing. Now here's something that's kind of obvious. Old saltwater crocodiles. Grandpa, are sea snakes going to be concerned? Sorrenti, generally speaking, sea snakes are not much of a concern. As I said before, they generally speaking cannot open their mouths large enough to bite humans unless they catch like your pinky or an earlobe or your nose or something. They can't open their mouths real big. And they typically are not aggressive. It's not like, they're going to go out after you. They tend to leave you alone, go about their business. They realize that you're not there to eat them and they're not there to eat you. So they tend to leave you alone. You're going to dive the Oriskany. I'm not sure where the Oriskany is, PC guy, but I plan on diving everything I can possibly dive. With that said, let me preface that a little bit by saying I tend to avoid the more common commercial public sites in preference for going to places that aren't getting so much dive pressure on them. So saltwater crocodiles, especially down around Central America and parts of the Caribbean, are certainly a big issue. And then, of course, there's the thing that is the most dangerous of all things while out sailing and cruising. The one biggest, scariest thing of all is your crazy, whacked out YouTube fan. I'm sorry, I just couldn't resist putting that in there. But yeah, super fans can get whacked out and crazy and do all kinds of crazy stuff and be very dangerous. So you got to be concerned with whacked out YouTube fans. Doesn't the coral live in the warmer waters? Yes, Teresa, as a general rule, coral does live in the warmer tropical waters. You nut, Carl. Anyhow, so here's all these things that are going to put you in the morgue, okay? There's your feet with the toe tag on it in the morgue. It's something that you've got to be concerned with all of these things. But, if you're looking for that wonderful tropical sunset and you're wanting to spend some time enjoying the beautiful tropics and having that bikini babe on your side and a nice cold beer in your hand and enjoying that kind of a sunset, these are all the risks that you have to be aware of. The point is, guys, these are all manageable risks. With all of these things that there is to be concerned about while out sailing and cruising, it's no different and no riskier than living in your house. All these things that I talked about that can happen to you. Okay, your house isn't going to get hit by a rogue wave, but, Semi-trucks can drive through houses. They can get hit by lightning. You can have earthquakes. You can have tornadoes. You can have whatever. Stuff happens no matter where you are and where you live. Hey, Basics Living, glad you made it. Welcome. So all of these things can happen to you while you're out traveling, but they're all manageable. Of all of these things that you have to worry about, all the possible illnesses that you could get, you know, seasickness is one of them. It's not going to kill you. Scuba diving, you have to worry about the bends, nitrogen narcosis if you come up too soon. All of these things are the normal kind of stuff that you can manage and deal with. There's a certain basic things that you just got to be thinking about, okay? Don't touch this. Big rule of thumb, don't touch this. Wear protective clothing at all times. If you're walking around on deck on your boat, long sleeve shirts, hats with ear covers, so I probably won't be wearing a ball cap. I'll wear something with bigger brims on it. Protect yourself from the sun. Sun lotion. So while you're exposed to the sun, that eliminates those risks. Use technology to avoid storms and bad weather. Some things are going to be things you can't control. Lightning. You know what? I'm sitting here in my little cabin up here in Alaska. We had a lightning storm last night come through. I could have been hit by lightning here. So lightning can happen. There's nothing here that is going to be any more dangerous than where you live, wherever you are in America. Number one problem and danger is not knowing the risks and not being properly trained. Yes, I agree. Yeah. So that was my reason for going through this list, was to give you an idea of, the top 50 things or so that you've got to be concerned about if you're sailing around the world. Point is, folks, none of them are that big a deal. None of them are that critical. Can they kill you? Sure they can. The odds are it's more dangerous for me to drive my car from here to go to work, if I work someplace. It's more dangerous to get in your car and drive around your neighborhood than it is to get in a boat and sail around the world. You're more likely to die doing that than anything I'm going to be doing. So these risks are very manageable. You just got to be aware of them. You got to think about them. Don't touch this, rule of thumb. Keep your rig on your boat in good working order. Give yourself protection from the sun. Get your shots and stuff ahead of time to protect yourself from diseases. Don't drink the water unless you treat it. Keep your boat in good shape. You do those things and be aware, like Kickham Jenny as a good example. Be aware that places like Kickham Jenny exist. Do your homework. Make sure that if you're sailing from point A to point B, that you're not going to sail across Kickham Jenny or something similar to it, because there are other places like it around the globe. So I guess a matter of just, do your homework, read a little bit, prepare a little bit, think a lot. You can sail around the world and be perfectly safe, even with all of these issues. Of course, the crazy YouTube fans, that's, something you're going to have to deal with no matter where you are. And actually, there's some interesting stories being told by some creators right now about some overzealous YouTube fans and stuff that's gone on, but we'll see what happens. Oh, very good that you are so knowledgeable. Well, Carolyn, I think knowledge is one of those things where a little bit can be dangerous, and I think I have just enough to be dangerous at this point. I certainly don't know everything, and I don't mean to come off like I do, but I'm trying to learn about these things and do what I can do. Every year I'll kill a brown recluse spider. Yeah, perfect example. Brown recluse spiders in in Columbus, Ohio. So don't sail in Bermuda Triangle. Hi, Lily. Lily's asleep in her crate. She's doing great. She's being nice and quiet. Do checkoffs on your boat just as an ambulance. Do your checkoffs before you pull out. Yes, that's right, Teresa. And a lot of the things that a lot of cruisers do is they'll prepare. Like when I was a paramedic, when I was an EMT, I carried a jump bag with me. I had an oxygen bottle and I had all my basic stuff with me, nasal cannulas and bags and whatever I was going to need to help somebody. And I'm going to take my jump kit with me and have that along. So I'll have protective measures and be prepared to some degree. So yeah, and make sure you just got the training and the equipment with you. How do you keep those spiders from getting into the house? You squish them, you spray for them. There's a number of things. Declan says, common sense, work hard on the boat and enjoy. Yep, Declan, absolutely. Just some normal common sense. Well, actually, some uncommon sense. You do need to learn about the exposures that you're going to have while out sailing and cruising. You just can't buy a boat and jump on it and go sail around the world. You got to do some homework and get some education before you do that. Two birds that are going overboard, pun intended. Yeah, Declan, I've heard stories from some of the bigger people. If you notice, some of them are very careful around fans nowadays. People get weird. People get weird. I know one guy who had a fan that decided that the fan was delusional and thought he was married to the star's sister, to the point where they had to get restraining orders against him to keep him away from the guy. So all kinds of crazy stuff goes on out there. It was great, but I got to run. Thanks for sharing the knowledge. Drive Shaft Drew, thanks for visiting with us. I'm glad you were here. We'll hopefully see you next week. Carl, you going to have a jump bag with you, basics, advanced? Yes, yes. IV supplies, fluids, all of that stuff. Plus, most physicians will prescribe a plethora of different drugs to carry on board, knowing that you're going to be in places where you're going to be kind of remote and not have access to them. So a lot of antibiotics and those kinds of things. We'll carry a pretty good medical kit with us at all times. The picture shows the type of boat you are looking to buy. Ooh, I did, yes, last Sunday, Carolyn, I did have a bunch of those. It's not easy. I can't just pull up a picture and put it into the live stream right now. If you check my live stream from last Sunday, you'll see that I did a bunch of pictures of the boat I was looking at buying. I'm looking for a shallow drafted, fairly new, has to have a sugar scoop revere, 38 plus feet. I have found a few that meet my criteria. In fact, there was a really nice hunter sailboat down in Florida for sale that I would have loved to have jumped on. I just don't have my money available yet, and now it's already sold. There are opportunities that pop up from time to time. You got to be paying attention and watching for them and jump on them when you can. Yolanda Razzo, how you doing? Welcome. Tracy McKern, what fish are edible? Oh gosh, Tracy, there's a bunch of them. But I did something interesting. I got a book. This is put out by the Florida Sportsman. You see that? Sportfish of Florida. It's of Florida, but it pretty much is applicable to almost the entire planet. But they'll talk to you about, various type of fish, and then it gives you a little background about it. One of the reasons I bought this book, one of the things they do, which is really interesting, is they talk about the food value. They talk about the food value of each fish. Because I've not eaten them all, certainly. And so, like in this case, a black grouper, its food value is excellent. Spinner sharks, food value is very good. Spinner sharks are good to eat. I didn't know that. Nurse sharks, food value is excellent. Probably the best of the sharks, maybe because of its shellfish diet. So nurse sharks are fairly common. You see a lot of nurse sharks. They actually talk about white sharks, great white sharks, they say are pretty fair eating. So interesting book and a good resource to have. Can you start an IV on yourself? Teresa, I do not know if I can start an IV on myself. Something I'm going to have, a bridge I'm going to have to cross at some point. See, that's the thing I find strange about inviting a patriot on your boat. The world is full of weirdos. Yeah, Declan, I agree. Hopefully you've done some homework. Hey, Sailing Doodles, welcome. Glad you're here. Bob and Megan. Yeah, you got to be concerned a little bit about that, You never know. But usually, generally speaking, if you have someone who is a Patreon person and they've made some donations or what have you, and you've had some conversation, they participated in the live chats, you get a little bit of a feeling for some people. But you're right. You always have that risk. And so, hey, if it gets that bad, you make them walk the plank. It's just that simple. We actually had an experience while we were down in the BVI. I chartered a catamaran and we hired a cook supposedly a chef who was supposed to be a chef that was supposed to help teach us about some of the native foods, some of the local foods, and show us how to make them. She turned out to be an absolute disaster, so much so that at the end, we were there for 2 weeks. We had this catamaran chartered for 2 weeks, and my wife had me put her ashore on the third day. Get rid of this woman. My wife said she would rather cook and do the dishes herself than have this cook on board and have to deal with her nonsense. So we put her ashore. So yeah, you never do know. Guys, Sailing Doodles is in the house. For those of you who don't know, Sailing Doodles, Bob and Megan have a cruising channel on YouTube called Sailing Doodles. They're awesome. Check them out. Go check out Sailing Doodles on YouTube. Really fun couple. They do some live streams, actually on Sundays earlier in the day, in the mornings. Check them out, though. Really good, folks. Give your body a good once over. Find a spot you can access it, okay? Will just be you, and you need to be able to do this. Yeah, actually, Teresa, I have a spot right here on my hand. I'm 99% confident I'll be able to do it. I just have a real needle phobia, so I'll have to work over that. But yeah, I'm pretty comfortable I'll be able to do that. Kelly, great topic of issues to discuss today. Thanks for bringing it up. I'll make sure my daughter Megan watches this live feed if she isn't already. I think she is, but it's always good to be aware of some of these things. So, and the purpose of this was not to at all discourage anybody from sailing and cruising. The point is, there's a whole lot of shit out there that can kill you, whether you're out on a boat, whether you're on land. You just got to be aware of what your risks are and do what you can to mitigate them. Megan says hi. She loves you long time. Oh, Bob, you're going to get hit for that. Hello, Megan, if you're watching. I really appreciate you guys being on here and watching. It's a lot of fun. Did you see the guy that went on Rick's boat? Strange guy. See the guy that went on Rick's boat. Which guy are you referring to, Declan? Rick has a lot of people on his boat, so I'm not sure which weird guy you're referring to, but you're going to have that. You're going to have some of that exposure. And if you're putting out a YouTube channel and you're inviting some of your cruisers some of your YouTube fans to join you on board as rewards for their patronage or what have you, you're going to have some possibility of some risks for that. So, what are you going to do? You try to mitigate your risks, or you try to put up with them as best you can. Be a gracious host and be polite and be nice and, realize that hopefully they're not out there to kill you and steal your boat. But those things happen too. Very isolated incidences, but they happen too. I know a boat dealer in California that was showing a couple a boat. They wanted to buy a boat, and they went out off the coast of California, and the couple took him out there, killed him, and sold the boat on to Hawaii. So they caught him, but she's here watching. Good. Don't get an infection. Yes, infections, well, you carry antibiotics with you, just like anything else. Fluid loss will be a real issue. Yes, absolutely. Fluid loss is an issue. It's an issue no matter where you are. And Teresa, I probably will not be making any major crossings alone. I will have people on board with me while I'm doing those. German Patreon. Oh, yeah, the German guy. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know, Declan. I guess the way I look at it is the German guy was outnumbered, so I don't imagine he was going to be much of a problem. Certainly didn't seem like he was going to be any kind of a problem, but you never can tell. Dogs and cats can be given injections. Yes, of course they can. Yeah, it's a week. You can put up with anyone for a week. That's right, Bob. You can put up with anyone. Hey, man, if I could put up with my ex-mother-in-law being around for a week, I can put up with anybody for a week. So you have enough room on a boat to get to your end and get away from them. So Lily is going to need an IV. I don't think Lily is going to need an IV unless she gets into something she shouldn't be getting into. But there's another thing to address. And it's easy to mitigate. Where did I put them? Here they are. And Bob, you guys should be looking at these too. I don't know if you have them. You guys probably don't know what this is. Anybody out there know what that is? I'll bet none of you guys know what that is. And it's something that Bob should have for the doodles. Okay. Let me get these out. Well, took out a couple of them. Here's what this is. It's a dog booty. It's a bag made out of Condura nylon that you put over the dog's foot. This little strap goes and tightens it around their foot so it doesn't come off. But it's to protect the dog's feet from things that might be at risk, like walking on fire coral as an example. So if you're in an area that you think you need to have some concerns about your dog's foot, or if the dog's foot gets hurt, this is a great way of keeping salves and medicines and stuff up against the foot, protecting the foot. So I carry a few sets of these. But yeah, these are dog booties. They're specifically designed and sized for my Labrador. And I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think I've got 7 pair with me. And Bob, if you want to buy some for your doodles, there's a company called dogbooties.com. You can check with dogbooties.com and you can buy them. Up here in Alaska, the dog mushers use them all the time when they're running Iditarod. That's how I got to know them. Running in the snow and the ice crystals and sand, actually sand in the summertime, dogs will get sand in their cracks to cause irritation. So using those dog booties protect their feet from that. Okay, Lily just came out of her crate after being a pain in the butt. So good idea to have some dog booties. What channel are you referring to when you're talking about Rick's boat? I believe, Charles, we were talking about Rick Moore, Sailing Sophisticated Lady. So the walrus is sorry. Okay, Austin, I don't know what in reference that is to. Dog socks boots, yes. They had problems with really rough beaches before. Yeah, obviously, sure. And keep in mind, a lot of that sand, sometimes you can get some of that fire coral broken up into the sand and get on the beaches. I don't know if you guys have noticed it, but have you ever walked down a beach and then found your feet red and sore afterwards? Probably because there may have been some fire coral in the sand. So it's something to be concerned about. Hot pavement and salted sidewalks too. Yes, Judy, obviously, yeah. Hot pavement will help as well. Sharon from Sealy Lake, Montana. Wow, hey Sharon. Sealy Lake, spend some time up in that neighborhood. I used to live in Livingston, Montana. Lived there for about 12 years, down in Paradise Valley. Yeah, I've had to wrap Maverick's paws with plastic bags before because of the sand working between his toes. It was really abrasive. Well then, Bob, by all means, get a hold of dogbooties.com. And they have a whole bunch of different types and models. You can get some really heavy duty ones made out of really thick, hard material. You can get like these that the dog mushers use, which are, you can get them just out of plain cotton. So you can get really soft ones. You can get a bunch of different ones. And they'll teach you how to measure your dog's foot to get the right size one. You'll probably just need the larges. That's about right for a Labrador. Okay, right, Judy. If you cannot touch the pavement or concrete with your hand for at least 10 to 15 seconds, then it's way too hot for paws. Yep, absolutely. If when you asked, do we know what booties were? Yeah, oh, okay, yes. Yep, dog booties. Sorry. Grandpa, another good suggestion, buy a personal locator beacon. Well, yes, Reich. Obviously, you're gonna have one on board the ship. Lily, get in the crate. Kennel. She's being difficult. I'm afraid she's going to pull the cord out of the computer, guys, so I got to put her up. Yeah, we would have an EPIRB on the boat, but also on my inflatable vest that I wear while up on deck, there'll be a PLB, a personal locator that works with that. So, yeah, obviously. And, these are some of the simple things you can do to mitigate some of the risks involved while out sailing and cruising. Doesn't mean it's going to do me any good. If I am halfway between the Galapagos and Hiva Oa, as an example, I'm 1,000 miles offshore, and I fall off the boat, and it's just Lily on the boat sailing away and leaving me there. There's no one to throw me a lifeline or throw me a ring. There's no one to turn the boat around to come back and get me. So I'm not going to put myself in that situation. I'm just not going to put myself in that situation. I'm going to make sure there's crew on deck. But I've seen a lot of cruise boats, people up on where they've only had one person at a night watch, and that's not a good idea either. The rule of thumb is you're the only person up on deck, but if you have to go out of the cockpit and go up forward, you're supposed to wake up somebody else and get them up on deck. That way, in case you fall over, there's someone there to raise an alarm and help you out. There are some things you can do to really mitigate your risks, and those you should be doing. My deck and dog ramp is hot now that we moved. Working on that. Okay. You'll be surprised. Dogs' feet can take quite a bit of heat. Quite a bit of heat. But when they get sore, then they are sore. So I remember that, the Aragon author, I read the books. Yeah, Sharon. Yep. 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 Christopher Paolini is who you're referring to there. Yep. My service dog had several pairs. Cool, Judy. Good idea. Yeah. Dog booties are always a good thing to have. My big fear has always been falling overboard at night when sailing. I always wear a POB when on the cockpit. Yeah, that's fine, Bob, but you got to make sure that Megan knows how to turn the boat around and come back for you if that happens. And, it's hard enough doing a man overboard drill when you've got a crew on board. But if, let's say you guys are sailing, okay, is Megan capable of dropping the sail, starting the engine, turning the boat around, all at the same time keeping an eye on you and where you're at so she doesn't lose direct, because it doesn't take long. If you're sailing along at 5 knots, which is a normal speed, 4 or 5 knots, within seconds, you cannot be seen from the boat. It doesn't take very long to get away. So you've got to work on that, make sure that training is in place. But yeah, that's my biggest fear, is falling off the boat. All these things to worry about, that's the one thing that bothers me personally. But did your ex-wife tell you she would go sailing with you? Yolanda, my ex-wife, yes, told me numerous times she would go sailing with me, but she kept putting obstacles. She only wanted to go sailing if I had a $500,000 cruising catamaran like a Lagoon 440. She kept putting obstacles in the way. So she would yeah, I'll go sailing with you. Yeah, she's interested in doing that. But every time I turned around, she had some other obstacle in the way. So ergo ex-wife. Okay. If you cannot support your spouse's dreams and desires, then you shouldn't be married. And I don't think I'm wrong with that. I certainly supported her and her dreams, her child's dreams. We actually moved from Montana. I had a beautiful house, 5,000 square feet, overlooking the Yellowstone River in Montana, with a successful real estate business there. And I closed all that down and sold that to move up here to Alaska, so her daughter could be up here for better access to dog mushing trails, because she wanted to be a dog musher. Plus, I spent easily a $500,000 in the last 20 years supporting her dog mushing, buying dogs and trucks and trailers and feed, and traveling back and forth between Alaska and Montana numerous times, a fortune. So I don't want to get started. Let's not go down that line. What does Declan say? But at least you died doing something you wanted to do instead of working on. Yeah, Declan, there's a lot to be said about that. But at night when she's sleeping and I fall off, goner. That's right. Yeah, you got to make sure she's on deck if you're going to move out of the cockpit. Speaking of Penny, moving on. Yes, I was speaking of Penny. We're moving on. Well, it's supposed to be one of the best ways to go. Hey, traveling man. Glad you made it here. Yeah, and there's something to be said about that. My first ex-wife, Johanna, wants me to make my circumnavigation that I want to do, but do it very quickly so I can get back and, be there to help her out and protect her or whatever. And that's all well and good. Family is first. I understand that. But she's worried I'm going to die while out sailing. Well, you know what? If I die while out sailing, then I died doing what I love doing. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. I don't want that to happen, obviously. I want to live as long as possible. I have no death wish. I'm not suicidal or homicidal. I want to live. But I would much rather die doing something I really enjoy doing than lying in a hospital, dying from something stupid. I used to have a joke I used to like to say that, if you don't drink too much and you don't smoke and you don't cheat on your wife, and you only eat the things you're supposed to eat, you take good care of yourself, you get exercise, you do all the things you're supposed to do, you're going to feel like a damn fool being in the hospital dying from nothing. Surprisingly, in my experience, those people that do the most to try to maintain their health usually are the ones that end up dying young anyway. So I guess there's more old fat guys than there are old doctors, although I'm not as fat as I used to be, and I'm certainly fatter than I'm going to be. So, if you watch Delo's safety series, you can learn a lot. Very cool how they do man overboard drills and train the new crew. Yes, yes, Jonathan, you're absolutely correct. And that's something you really need to do with crew at all times. Have some kind of waterproof flashing light with you. Yes, obviously. Kim, most of the personal MOBs, little devices, they'll have a blinking light or something on them. But still, just a little small flashing light out in the middle of the ocean, a boat traveling at 5 knots, you'll get to where you can't see that light very quickly. And, is that light above the surface so you can be up, because if it's attached to your swim vest, it may not be above the surface. Good night to watch The Perfect Storm. It may be. Yep. For anyone up on deck during the night to have a lifeline on whether any part of the crew. You should have a light. Anytime you're off the dock and not tied to a dock, your lifeline should be in place. And as long as you're in the cockpit, you don't need to be clipped in unless conditions warrant it. And sometimes you'll be out in some serious stuff and then they should. But as soon as you step outside that cockpit, you should definitely have your lifeline clipped in. And now some boats, depending on their design, you may want to do that anyway. Like the boat that I plan on buying is going to have an open sugar scoop on the back. So there's not much, if I trip, fall, slip, whatever, I can go get washed right off the back of the boat. So I will have a tendency to probably clip in and strap myself into the boat at all times while I'm up on deck. That's just a good safety feature. So, familiar with driving the Blackfoot, we risk being in a car wreck all the time. Yeah, again, it's just a matter of mitigating your just being aware of stuff. Drowning and burning to death are two ways I would hate to die from. Nobody wants to die from anything. You have to stay on deck and safe for Lily. Yeah, Judy, and generally speaking, if we're in rough water, the dogs are down below. You don't even let them up on deck if we're in any kind of rough water. Or for that matter, even underway. If we're underway sailing someplace, then if the dog's, if she needs to come up on deck, she'll be up on leash. I'll walk her forward to do her business, and then she goes back down below again. Because I don't want to do a man overboard with my dog in the water. Could you imagine how hard it would be to see a yellow dog's head in the water when you're out sailing away? Don't want to be, and I certainly don't want to lose her. So, Megan is scared of sailing disaster movies. Yeah, sure, I can understand that. But it's something that you gotta face that. You gotta find these fears. One of the reasons why I did this live stream today. You got to identify these fears. You got to face them head on, be aware of them, learn about them, understand them. And in learning and understanding them, you can mitigate them and they're no longer a problem. So, of course, there's always exceptions. There's always exceptions to every one of these ideas. So, I could be out in perfectly clear water, in a swimming pool pretty much and get bit by a shark. Perfect example, there's people swimming in fresh water, in rivers and freshwater, they get bitten by bull sharks. People don't realize bull sharks can swim up into fresh water. So, you could be in the Mississippi River and get bitten by a bull shark. You don't have to be out in the ocean. So, just got to know your risks and understand them. So, listen to that, Megan. I love your bow seat, but you're not clipped in. Personally, I would live on the bow. Yep. Well, again, Rhonda, it depends on the conditions, okay? If Bob's at the helm and Rhonda's up forward and she's in her chair and not walking back and forth, generally speaking, she should be safe being able to go forward and do that. But they're not doing that when they're in any kind of bad conditions. They're just, sailing along. But still, she should not be moving from the cockpit to that bow seat. She should not be moving back and forth without having a line clipped in. So, now I am too, Bob. Bob, make her watch it. Tell her it's a safety movie. There you go. She don't want to sail away from you either. No, Lily definitely doesn't want to sail away from me. My dogs are being below when we're on deck or in the cockpit. Yeah, I know they do. Lily really hates being down below when I'm up on deck. When I'm in the cockpit, she wants to be in the cockpit with me. And that's fine. Her harness has the ability of being clipped in when she's in the cockpit. I don't let her go up on deck unless I'm having her on a leash or something and walking her. And then of course she's wearing her harness, but she's got a harness. I've trained her how to use a harness when she was a little puppy. She would ride with me in the front seat of my truck. I had a full chest harness thing on her and would clip her into a leash on the car seat to keep her from getting into trouble and get where she shouldn't be. So she got accustomed to that, and so being on the boat's just another extension of that. Obviously, a much bigger harness now since she's a big dog, but she's gotten accustomed to that and is comfortable with them. It was kind of fun putting the dog booties on her for the first time. She was walking around with her paws kind of not figuring out what was going on. And she pretty quickly figured it out and got going with it. But she doesn't like it because she can't dig her nails into the ground when she wears her dog booties, which is another reason to have dog booties on them when they're on the boat. They are slippery on the boat, but they won't tear up your deck so bad. What's the Robert Redford movie? I don't know which Robert Redford movies. Have a great night, Carl and everyone. Hey, Basics Living. Take care. We'll see you later. Just did my first solo sail in Pensacola Bay. Hey, congratulations, Scurvy. Yes, fears have to be recognized and overcome. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Robert Redford movie. Oh, that's the movie you're talking about. That Robert Redford movie. I don't know what the name of that one. Anybody know the name of that Robert Redford movie where he hits the shipping container and almost drowns? It's a relatively new movie for him. I don't know. You can Google Robert Redford. I'm sure it'll show up on his list of films. Scurvy, it's nice that you did your first solo sail. It's something everybody needs to be doing. And yes, you do need to identify your fears and hit them head on. I applaud you for doing that. It's something everybody should be doing. All day long, it only works if you use it while out there. Yeah, Tracy, absolutely, of course. And you watch these sailing videos and you can see a lot of these people aren't doing it. And surprisingly, I've seen a lot of people with young kids on their boat out sailing, and the kids aren't clipped in or even in harnesses or flotation vest on. Big mistake. Big mistake. I mean, obviously, it's a pain in the neck. Nobody wants to wear it. It was hot out. You don't want to be wearing that thing. I understand all that. But still, the Redford movie is a true story. It is, but Sailing Doodles is correct. There was a lot of things. He said he didn't have an EPIRB or a SATCOM. Yeah, there was a whole series of mistakes made in that movie that the owner of that sailboat made. There was a whole bunch of mistakes, one after another, after another, after another, and it was the compounding all those mistakes one on top of another that led to what would have been his eventual demise. And folks, let's face it, if he had died, there wouldn't have been a movie, right? We wouldn't know about it. So those people that have had that experience and have died from it, I'm sure they're out there. We'll never hear about it. There never will be a movie because they weren't saved to tell the story. So history is only taught by those who survived. Gonna go get some sleep before your sailing lessons. Okay, Reich, you take care, buddy. I'm glad you were here. Thanks for visiting with us. Tan lines suck, but the alternative is worse. Rhonda, you get tan lines on the beach. You don't get tan lines while sailing. Well, you will, but hopefully not too much. So, anyhow, sounds like it's going to be a great week for you, Reich. Yeah, I think Reich's going to have a great week. Doing his ASA sailing lessons, that's going to be awesome. I'm jealous, actually. I'd love to be out sailing like that. Lightning and sea, what do you do? Tracy, good question. Nothing. I mean, lightning is one of those things there really is absolutely nothing you can do about it. If you know a storm's coming, try to get into a safe harbor, preferably under a bridge or under power lines or someplace where the lightning is more likely to hit them than your mast. Be in an area where there's some high trees. One thing I've learned is that there are certain places in the world that attract lightning. A hillside that has a high content of metal in the earth will attract a lot of lightning. So, get near that, but not too close to that, because the lightning is going to hit that mountain every time instead of hitting your mast. There are ways of grounding your boat. You can run a wire up your mast, connect it up to a fire stick at the top, run it down the mast over the side, and grind it, well, as best you can into the water. Giving the electricity a direct line to the water, a more direct path, that might mitigate some of your damages. But as a general rule, there's not really a whole lot you can do about it, except maybe position your boat someplace where you're less likely to get hit. Jonathan Kiani says, check YouTube channel Burnett Med, where the family of 4 on a Leopard 48 hits a unlit fish farm shark to be a mile away in 30 knots of wind. This is the amazing Marvin gets effed up a much water. Huh. Burnett Med, huh? I will make a note of that. Sorry if I'm shaking the computer here, but I'll take a look at that, Jonathan. Thank you. I've not seen that one that I know of. Maybe I have, but it may have been a while. So keep sailing and stay away from metal parts. Yes. One thing that's a good idea to do if you're in a lightning strike is disconnect all your electronics and put them inside of a microwave or what other kind of Faraday type box you might have on your ship. Microwaves tend to be good Faraday boxes. If you have a microwave in your kitchen, put your USB radios in there, put your VHF radios, put your LoRaN and whatever navigational stuff, put your electronics in there, the most expensive parts, and disconnect everything and shove them into a microwave or someplace to protect them. That's a good idea to do if you're concerned about lightning strikes. See, my buddy has a chain in the water off the upper shroud. Yeah, exactly. Yep. And that's what that's for. You run a chain in the water, and that's to give the lightning a faster path. Captain Scurvy says, I just did ASA 101 before doing my first solo sail. Definitely a good idea if you don't have experience. Yeah, absolutely. An ASA 101 is great. For me, just let you guys know, I grew up in Long Island, on the North Shore of Long Island, a town called Port Washington. I had a girlfriend that liked taking me out on the bay and going sailing. We would take her little sunfish and go out on the bay and sail. Had some real memorable times out with her on that little sailfish. And for those of you that don't know, a sailfish is like a surfboard with a sail on it. That's about all it is. There's really not a cockpit you get down into. You're just sort of on deck. It's got a little bit of thing, but not much. But we would sail that all over Manhasset Bay. I also had a 16-foot MFG fiberglass motorboat with a 40-horse Merc on the back, and I would take that all over Long Island. I would take it offshore to South Shore. I was crazy all the places I went with it. Had a blast with it. So that was my boating experience. My parents made me take a boating course. Back then, they had a course you could take on Long Island on, the coal regs, which are the rules for being out on a boat. So I took this little boating course when I was a kid. Other than that, the only other sailing experience I've had is, going down to the BVI and chartering a boat. One year, our first year down there, we chartered a boat with a skipper. Went out and spent a week with the skipper on board the boat with us, and the skipper ran the boat, and we just enjoyed ourselves. But I paid attention, watched, listened, learned, spoke, got involved, did some of the stuff, learned the basics from that skipper. I've gone back down and chartered boats a few times after that. I've bought my own boat, played with my own boat out. I've had a couple Cals, a Cal 30, a Cal 31. Sailed those around in Seattle, sailed them up here in Alaska. Got a little bit more experience. For me, that was what worked best for me as opposed to taking an ASA course. But I'm not saying an ASA course is a waste of time. It's not. It's exactly what you should be doing. I should have taken an ASA course. Absolutely. But that teaches you all the theory. It's a little weak on practical application. But, sailing is not that difficult, folks. It really is not that. It's very intuitive. It's something that you'll figure it out pretty quickly on your own. And once you start figuring it out, that light bulb goes off and you're just, oh yeah, duh. And you'll get it and be comfortable with it. I love sailing. To me, shutting off that motor and just having the wind move the boat by itself is just awesome. So the boat ends up inside the fish farm, and the wife and kids are rescued by the Spanish Coast Guard, and the father stays on board. I won't say anything more. It's not spoil the whole video. Okay. So the guy stays on the boat inside a fish farm. Does he get eaten by the fish? Hey, last night's guy. Welcome. I'm glad you're here. Is this the shrimp trap one? No. Unfortunately, it is raining again. You'll have to go back and watch this one from the beginning, last guy. I did a whole presentation on all the reasons why you should not go sailing and cruising. Everything to be scared about, everything to be afraid about. Get it all out of the way in one episode. So go back and watch this afterwards. You'll get a kick out of it. Was that the boat that ended up on the beach? Oh, you're talking about that guy in the fish trap. I don't know. I've never had a boat up on a beach. I love the old Cal 40, some amazing restorations being done. What a boat. You know, Jonathan, actually, it's interesting that you brought that up. There's a channel on YouTube right now. Oh, what's their name? One of the marine manufacturers is doing a series on a Cal 40 right now where they literally stripped it down to bare bones and are rebuilding it back up with the idea of selling it from Seattle to Hawaii and back. They're gonna participate in that race. Oh, damn, I can't remember the name of the company. Don't know if I can look that up while I'm in the midst of all this. I don't think I can do that during the middle of a live stream. I think I'll whack stuff out. Probably shouldn't try. Yeah, but anyhow, there's... You know what? I'll put it in the comments after this show. I'll make a comment and I'll list that company. It's one of the marine manufacturers. They did a whole big series on the Cal 40 restoration. Really interesting stuff. I happen to like the old Cals because they're built like brick shit houses. I like that in a boat. Unfortunately, my needs are that I'm not going to be able to buy one of those. I'm going to be buying a much more modern boat. What some people will claim to be a coastal cruiser as opposed to a blue water cruiser. They really don't make much blue water cruisers nowadays, and the ones they do make are so damn expensive nobody can hardly afford to buy one. I'm not going to spend $600,000 or $1 million on a boat. That's just crazy. I'm going to buy a good used, 1995 to 2000, 15, 16, 25-year-old boat that has a sugar scoop, and that's what I'm going to sell around the world in. And it'll be just fine. It'll be just fine. So, and that's the thing of it is I'm going to be doing a lot of scuba diving. I need to be able to get in and out of the boat easily. I don't want a boat with a lot of high freeboard making it difficult to get in and out. I need something I can get in and out easy. So that's kind of what I'm going to be looking for. Let's see, this old boat. Yes, I've been watching that series. Okay, what's the name of the series, Jonathan? What channel is that? Something Marine. I know it's something Marine, but I don't remember what the name of the company was. You're still trying to get that boat you talked about last week. Bob, yeah, I am, but I can't do anything until my property up here sells. I am probably not going to be in the market to buy a boat until 1st August. I'm probably going to be stuck till the 1st of August. And I was going to tell you, there was a Hunter for sale down in Florida. Phenomenal boat. 43-foot Hunter, or was it 49? It was a big Hunter for sale for a really good price. But Schaefer Marine, there you go. Schaefer Marine. Thank you, Traveling Man. That's it. Schaefer Marine on YouTube is doing a Cal 40 restoration. Really interesting. Ground up by people who really know their shit. You can look at what Cal 40 is not your usual YouTube channel. It's not some people have no idea what they're doing fixing up a boat. These are people that really know what they're doing fixing up a boat. So I highly recommend looking at what they do. Where was I before I got off on the Schaefer Marine? I'm sorry. Oh yeah, there was a Hunter for sale, but it came on the market on Yacht World. And literally like 3 days later, it was in contract, sale pending. So you just got to keep your eyes open for those. And, obviously I can't jump on something like that until the time comes. So I hear bad things about Hunters. Yeah, Captain Scurvy, you know what? I hear bad things about every boat. It's just like cars, Chevy versus Ford. There are some people that love Chevys and hate Fords, and some people love Fords and hate Chevys. People are unreasonable. I mean, just today I got in an ignorant argument with some guy who lives in Vancouver Island. We were talking about pollution down in the Caribbean, and he got off on this whole big tangent about how America sucks, you know. And no matter what you said or did, you weren't going to do anything to convince him otherwise. He lives in Canada, and America is to blame for everything in the world, which I thought was kind of interesting considering he was on the internet, which is an invention by an American, talking about research he did on Google, which is an American company, while eating his Fritos and Pepsi, which is American. I mean, that's kind of ridiculous, stupid nonsense that goes on. People are unreasonable and aren't going to say something positive about a hunter for whatever prejudice they may have against a hunter. I've known some people that have hunters that absolutely love them. I've never known anybody that owned a hunter that had something negative to say about a hunter. Maybe, some issue with a particular part on the boat, but, that's not necessarily the boat. You can't blame a hunter for having a bad Yanmar engine. And, of course, Yanmars rarely are bad, so you can't blame them for that. Bad navionics, bad, B&G gauges, whatever. There's so many different components on a boat. You can't blame it all just on one manufacturer. So you really got to take those things with a grain of salt and figure out what the real issue is. So just my thoughts. So I hear bad things. Okay, let me see. Yes, that's it. Share the love. Yeah, guys, share the love. Please do like and subscribe. I have started a Patreon page. If anybody wants to jump on there, I have one patron so far. I have one, and he's an awesome guy. It'd be nice if I had two. So please jump on there if you would, because I really love my patrons. In fact, I've got some patron-only content coming out soon, which I think is awesome. Got to go sailing. Rand just showed up. Oh, okay, Bob, that's cool. Say hello to Rand. You guys have fun. Doodles, how many doodles? Tell them a fellow Swede says hello. Say hello, doodles, for me. Bad boat is one that won't float. Oh. Well, yeah, bad boat is one that won't float. Actually, Tracy, to me, a bad boat is a boat that won't float or a boat you don't own. I am a real advocate of being debt-free. In fact, that's actually going to be a problem for me while I'm out sailing and cruising. I don't have a credit card. I have to get a credit card. I don't want a credit card. But if I'm going to rent a car any place in the world while I'm traveling, I need to have a credit card. I use my debit cards directly off of my accounts. I don't have any debts except for a mortgage on this property, which I really didn't want to have in the first place. But my wife and daughter insisted we buy this, so we ended up having to get a mortgage. Before buying this property up here in Alaska, I was completely debt-free. I didn't owe a dime to anybody, and I much prefer it that way. And when I sell this property, I'm not going to get in debt again, ever again in my lifetime. So I have to deal with that, but that's a whole nother area. Well, Ganubi, I'm glad you found this interesting. I appreciate that. I really appreciate when people make comments to me like that that you appreciate. In fact, I'm going to read you one. I got a comment this week, and I printed it out because I wanted to save it for myself. And it came from a lady by the name of Pamela Avery. And she did this on one of my channels, so I don't mind sharing her name because she made it public. And she said, "Thanks for the positive video, Grandpa. We need more people like you in the world. I sure hope and pray all your dreams come true. Big hugs from North Carolina." I can't tell you how much I appreciate getting a comment like that on my channel. It really empowers me to go forward with what I'm doing. I'm trying to provide positive information, positive content, just like doing these live streams, rather than just sit and answer some questions. I like to put a program together and have some kind of benefit to you guys for coming along and listening to my nonsense for an hour. So I'm hoping I'm doing that, but it really just struck me as cool to get comments like that. So thank you, Ganubi. I really appreciate that. Thank you very much. Made my whole day with that comment. So thank you, sir. We understood the Volvo Penta motors are no good. Lots of problems. Yeah, Judy, I don't know. Volvos, I don't know. Volvo makes great cars. I don't have experience with the Volvo Penta motors. I do know they were kind of common there for a while. I think it was a price point. But generally speaking, the go-to motor in the marine industry is the Yanmar diesel, and the Yanmar diesel is a Kubota. I'm sorry, not a Kubota. Um, yeah, I think it's a Kubota. Kubota diesel engine. I think it's a Kubota diesel engine is what the Yanmars use. They all have the same basic block in them, and then they aspirate them or treat them however they do differently. But that basic underlying motor is like the go-to motor in the industry for a diesel engine. So um, I would not ever put a gasoline-powered motor in a sailboat. Never, 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 never. Gasoline's explosive. Diesel is not explosive. Um, but other than that, you do what you want to do. I would never have an electric motor. To me, and I'm going to touch base on this. I know a lot of guys here are watching, and you're fans of sailing UMA. It's not practical to carry enough solar power and batteries to power an electric motor for any kind of extended range. So a lot of the people that put electric motors on boats then use a diesel generator to generate electricity to run the electric motor. Now instead of having a diesel engine directly to a propeller pushing the boat, you have a diesel engine powering an electric motor, powering a propeller. You're just adding one more thing to go wrong in the chain. It just doesn't make sense to me. One year down in the BVI, we chartered an electric-powered Lagoon catamaran. It was a Lagoon 42, and it had twin electric motors in it, which was great. So you didn't have diesel engines, you had twin electric motors. So you had to run the generator the whole time we were on the boat, anytime we went anywhere, to power the electric motors. And then, of course, you have a huge battery bank to support those motors. And then that battery bank is just creating a huge amount of toxic landfill. So just not a good design. Just not a good way to go. They haven't gotten that figured out yet. Batteries are still bad. So we'll see how that happens. But have an older gas Penta has been good. Gas. So a gas engine. Problem with gas engines, you really need to make sure that you ventilate your boat tremendously. You can't let the evaporated gas, those fumes, sit in your engine. A lot of boats blow up because they have a gas engine. The fumes get in and around the engine. When they go to start, it gets a spark and blows the boat up. It's not the gas tanks that explode. It's the gas fumes in and around the engine compartment that explode. So something to be concerned about last night, Sky. I would never own a sailboat with a gas engine, period. Just won't do it. No one should use credit cards. Save up. You respect anything you buy more because of it. Yes, Declan, I agree. But in order to rent a car, if I want to do a car rental while out traveling, you can't rent a car anywhere in the world without having a credit card. Just the way it is. So I may have to get a credit card just for that purpose alone, which bothers the hell out of me. So. Yeah, Uma's motor stopped working. Yeah, I know they're having all kinds of problems with it. So, people have been sailing and have been cruising and building sailboats for generations now, decades, centuries even. There's a certain amount of accumulated knowledge that has come down the pipe that equates into what is now considered the modern day sailboat. Those individuals that thumb their nose at that hard-earned knowledge, to me, is ridiculous. And I like the UMA folks. They seem like really nice people. But, they had a decent boat with a diesel engine, and their reasoning for taking that diesel engine out was just a kick in the teeth to everybody that's all those designers and engineers and that have built these boats and designed these boats and went to school learning engineering. They just kicked all that in the teeth and did their own thing, and now they don't have a motor on their boat. It boggles my mind to think about that kind of stuff. Why they would do that, I don't know. I really don't know why they would do that. I told them it was a mistake when they were doing it, and they don't kind of like me very much because of that. I get a bit of a cold shoulder from Uma, maybe because I expressed my thoughts here and other places as well. Old Grandpa don't keep his mouth shut very much. It's one my policy is that I need to keep my mouth shut at times. Water, not vodka, not tequila. Water. Be nice if it was tequila, but I just have the opportunity to watch any news on the sale of your property. If you have already answered, that's okay. Native American wanderer making some progress. Nothing to report at this time. Ski boat. Okay, well, gasoline powered ski boat, that makes sense. Yes. Outboard, but if you notice the way they design gasoline powered speedboats is when you turn your ignition switch on, you turn it to one spot and you'll hear the fans kick on, and that ventilates the engine compartment. That takes all of the gasoline fumes out of the engine compartment before you start the engine. Kind of like a diesel in cold weather. You turn it on, let the glow plugs warm up, then you start the engine. Gasoline engines on speedboats, if it's an inboard, you turn the key to a certain point, you let the fans ventilate the engine compartment, and then you start. It's a big mistake to skip that ventilation part. So you can get cards that are not credit cards and just loan money on them. Yeah, Declan, and I may do that. I may do that. Just use those kind of cards. I gotta see. I don't know. I might get an American Distress card. I don't know. I haven't addressed that yet. I'll have to get into that. But I need to start doing something pretty quickly on that. So I'll have to get going with that pretty soon. So, bloody hippies. Yep. Yep. Bloody hippies. 2-power electric motor. You need electric eels instead of bats. 2-power electric motor. You need electric eels. You could. Grandpa has a lovely voice when singing. Judy, you no doubt listened to my Friggin' in the Riggin' song. I have a lot of fun singing that song, guys. It's a song I've enjoyed my entire life. And I'm sorry if you found the language offensive, but it was just a lot of fun. And for those of you that haven't heard me singing Friggin' in the Riggin', you got to go back one video and watch that one, and you'll hear old Grandpa singing Friggin' in the Riggin'. So I open the engine cover before starting. That helps too. That way, if it does ignite, it all goes straight up and doesn't blow your boat apart. That was about the Uma chat. Yes, Jacqueline, I knew that. Yes, I was aware of that. Yep. Toad Sucker. Yes, Rhonda likes my Toad Sucker song. Have anybody else remember my Toad Sucker song? You know what? Just for Rhonda, I'm going to do my Toad Sucker song real quick, okay? It goes like this. How about them toad suckers? Ain't they sappy? Sucking them toads offshore make them sappy. I got it wrong. How about them toad suckers? Ain't they sappy? I can't remember the words. Sucking them toads, shore make... there you go. How about them toad suckers? Ain't they sappy? Sucking them toads, oh, shore make them happy. Hug 'em mugger toad suckers way down south. Sticking them sucky toads in they mouth. I be a toad sucker, knowing a duck it. You just found an old toad and you rear back and suck it. And on that note, we probably should end this live stream, guys. We've been going an hour and 43 minutes now. Probably went over a bit. And I think I've worn everybody out here. But you know what? Before I do that, let me open up to questions. If anybody have any questions about what we talked about today or anything else in regards to life, why is the sky blue and the grass green? Why does a neighbor's dog poop in my yard? What other kinds of pearls of wisdom can I share with you today? Carl, keep something in mind. If you go to the table with boat here in New York, Lake Ontario is over record levels. The boat sales are taking a beating. Deals are to be had. Hey, you know, and that explains quite a bit, Paulie. The boat I'm looking for is on Lake Ontario, and it is still available. And, you know, we are now into the middle of May, so if it was going to sell, I would imagine it would have sold by now because this is the buying season for Lake Ontario. But if they're having problems and issues with the lake, then it might be nice to see what happens. Maybe come August, it'll still be available. If it is, I certainly will be heading that way to take a look at it. So husband says, here's to sailing with swimming with bow-legged women. There you go. I agree with that, Judy. Have to go. Thanks. It's late over here in Ireland. Declan, may the road meet you or whatever. What's that Irish saying? May the road rise up to meet you. Anyhow, you know what I'm saying. You guys have a good day. Have a pleasant evening. I'm glad you made it here, Declan. Carolyn Herman, great live stream tonight. Thank you, Carolyn. Yolanda, love your stream tonight, Grandpa. Thanks, Yolanda. I appreciate it. Native American Wanderer, hope you have a wonderful week. Keep singing. I will, Native American Wanderer. Thanks. Hey, Cheshire. Share the love. Like it. Until next week, have a great thank you, Kim. Sharon, I'm glad you tuned in too. For us Montanans. Grandpa, thanks again for another live stream. Appreciate the information. Hope for a great week. Hey, thanks, Kelly. I appreciate it. Bow-egged, I meant. Judy. First time watching your channel and subbed. I do see your comments on many selling channels. Well, thank you, Jonathan. I appreciate that. Yep, I do tend to comment more than I probably should. I'm an opinionated butt, but try to be lovable anyway. May the road rise up to meet you. May the wind be always on your back. There you go, Rhonda. You got it. All right, guys. Well, you guys all have a good day. We will try to catch you guys next week. In the meantime, I'll try to post a video or two. Be sure to check out my other videos. Please do like and subscribe. And if you would, check out my Patreon page, should you be so inclined. I have one patron. I'd really like to have more. So you guys take care, and we will catch you guys on the flip side.